What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Football Diary. And today, what we are talking about is the Arizona Cardinals because they are undefeated right now. And we want to talk about the question that a lot of people are asking. Are they legit? Are they a contender? Not just a contender in the NFC West, which is a great division, but are they a contender for the Super Bowl? Because they went out there and they've beaten some teams that some people would say are quality wins, and they're facing the Rams this week. And so let's get our opinions out there before they play the Rams, because obviously if they go out there and beat the Rams, it's like, yeah, they're legit. And then if they get killed by the Rams, it's still kind of a tough call to say whether or not they're legit because the Rams are a tough team. But let's talk about it, Matt. The Arizona Cardinals, led by Kyler Murray, or should I say led by J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, are they legit?
So, obviously, anyone watching right now, you can see the banner behind me. I've paid pretty close attention to this team, especially last year throughout the season because they had a lot of injuries. Started out really hot, similar to how they did this year. I think it's a little bit different, a little better this year, but pretty similar. And then you look at the offseason, and it's a lot of upside moves, high upside moves. And my thought was either they're going to be healthy and this is going to work out really well, or they're probably going to be in last place, but last place could even be close to a playoff seed. So not like a really bad team or anything, but they have a really high ceiling. And I think what we're seeing right now is we've seen a couple games where their star players take over. Kyler Murray, he takes over games. Chandler Jones, yes, he absolutely takes over games. Same thing with Nuck. He's looked like he's been really good this year. Chase Edmonds has taken a big step. And honestly, on the defensive side, you have J.J. Watt and you have Chandler Jones healthy. You're going to be looking really good. Now, also got Budda Baker, Isaiah Simmons. I think everyone's kind of expecting Isaiah Simmons to gradually get better and better. So if that's the case as well, you're going to continue to see them pretty good. Now, I don't know if that means they're quite yet a true Super Bowl contender. Maybe we learn that throughout the season because also the NFL changes so fast. If they have a couple injuries, it could look a lot different. However, if some of these pieces that we don't really know about start looking a little bit better, and maybe because right now the big hole I see is outside at corner. I think that could be really bad if you start playing against some really quality NFL teams, potentially the Rams. I think it could be really bad for them. Let's see how they look against the Rams. If they look against the Rams good in that department, then I think we learn a lot about them. So I actually agree with you though about the Rams game. I think we're going to learn a ton about that football game.
Oh yeah, this is a team that I think they're a year away, in my opinion. I do love a lot of their pieces. Matt and I have been some of the biggest Chandler Jones fans over the last couple of seasons. We felt like he has been so underrated. A guy that's probably been better than Von Miller in his career, and most people don't even know who he is. I guess in the last couple of years, people have started to really know who he is, but he is an absolute monster. And then J.J. Watt, another guy that's just an absolute monster. One of my issues is just this is one of those teams that I feel like they can go out there. They could probably play with any team in the NFL. With that offense, the players that they have, they could go out there and they could beat probably any team. But at the same time, with the holes that they have, they can lose to a lot of bad teams at the same time. And that's just something that you have to look at when you have teams like this where there's no average players. Is there a spot on this roster, Matt, where you look at it and you're like, you know what? This guy's an average guy at his position. There really isn't. You look at the wide receivers. Oh, they have DeAndre Hopkins. Elite. Quarterback. Oh, Kyler Murray. Elite. Running back. Below average. I'm sorry. But the running back spot.
No, I don't know about Chase Edmonds. I think is better than I think most people feel like. I do.
Yeah, he's better, but also they give a fair amount of carries to James Conner, who's.
I don't think James Conner is very good.
Yeah, not very good. Tight end. Max Williams is not a very good tight end. He can catch the football. He does that decently, I guess. But, this whole team is just completely, it's a seesaw. Every single time it's oh, you're either really good or you're not very good at your job. And that's the benefit.
Real quick, is it to me, it's below average, NFL starter. It's not like these guys are out here.
No, it's not like these guys are scrubs and they shouldn't be in the NFL. I'm talking like
Yeah, yeah.
starters. I'm not like, oh, this guy should be a fourth string player. They don't have anybody like that. I'm talking starters. If you compare them to an average player at that position. But that's just something that you look at this team. And so when the guys take over, and Matt, you talked about it, Kyler's taken over. Chandler Jones has taken over. DeAndre Hopkins has taken over. They can win. But if those guys don't take over, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to win some games. And sometimes they will not have good games. And so you can get situations where they come down to the wire against teams that just are not as good as them. And that's just going to be one of the issues that this team has, is that when they get into the playoffs or trying to get to a playoff spot, like they played against the Jaguars and they struggled against the Jaguars, or at least for part of the game, you can't have that sort of lapse when you're going against the Buccaneers, the Rams, heck, the Niners, any team in that division, really. Also the Seahawks. When you're going against the Packers, you don't want to be able to have those situations where you need to take over, because those teams have very solid cores as well as guys that can take over. The teams that they've played right now, I mean, they played a backup offensive tackle, or at least not a backup, but an injured offensive tackle. They should have played the backup in Tennessee. And that allowed Chandler Jones to absolutely go crazy. And so they were able to beat the Titans. That game was over really quickly. And then they beat the Vikings on a missed field goal. And then they beat the Jaguars. Like, are those enough? Like, I don't consider those quality wins. Like the Titans was impressive, but you have to take a step back and realize, oh wait, their tackle should not have played.
And it was week 1.
Yes.
And there's always something like that happens. And I feel like that was a weird game. Because the Titans might be all right. I don't think the Titans are great though at the same time. And the Cardinals, they should be credited with that win. I feel like, definitely you credit with anyone in the NFL, but to me, I think it's just too early to tell. I really do. I think that there's a chance that we see them against the Rams and they look really bad, especially on defense. Now, the one thing I'll give them is, like you're saying, like you're going through the roster. It's like, oh, really good here, really, not strong here. They have a quarterback who is an elite quarterback, and they have a really good, at least one, I think, really good player at each level on the defense. I think Isaiah Simmons is becoming a pretty good, I don't know, maybe not really good yet for him, but pretty good. But you got Budda Baker on the back end, and then you have 2 great linemen, and J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones. So you have 2 guys that can really get after the quarterback. That's huge. We know how important that is in the NFL. One of the big losses they had was losing Hassan Reddick. But they got, who was it to replace? Marquise Golden, another speed rusher. So that's a good pickup too to cover up that spot. So I feel like that's another spot you could put hey, that's probably an average starter right there in Marquise Golden. So I don't think it's as super up and down maybe as you were kind of thinking, but I definitely get what you mean though. Because normally it's playoff teams, they have very few spots where there's below average starters, and it seems like they have a way higher rate. But their star players, oh my God, are they good? Final thing I want to kind of talk about here, coaching. I think they got a question mark with Cliff. I really do. You look at some of these offenses, and it feels like McConnell. It feels like the Ravens. It feels like Greg Roman handicapping an offense where it's Lamar doing everything. And for the Cardinals, when I watch the Cardinals game, I'm like, first of all, I think, wow, Kyler Murray is a very, very special player. And, oh, wow, Chandler Jones really took this game over, stuff like that. But on offense, it's always, oh, Kyler Murray's doing everything. And, Nuck is out there making plays. But there's not, layups. There's never any layups, it feels like. And so that's my problem there is, if you're an offensive coordinator, honestly, forget about the rest of the personnel. If you have Kyler Murray as your quarterback, you got to scheme him up just a few plays, right? And it just doesn't seem like it happens. It really doesn't. I credit Kyler Murray more than, that's the way I see it too at the same time. But I just don't have a ton of faith in Cliff. Are you there with me?
Yeah, I mean, Cliff, I have to give him his props. I mean, he was brought in to be the quarterback guy, right? He's the guy that was all in on Mahomes. And then they bring him in and he sees, oh, yeah, you got this guy, Josh Rosen. Get him out of here. This Kyler kid's going to be special. And he was right. He was right about Kyler Murray. But at some point you have to take what he was able to bring you, which was an elite quarterback, and move on. Because I feel like so many times do we, not just with coaching, but a lot of NFL players, they do one thing for their team, and the team just continuously is like, thank you so much for that one thing you did that one time. We're going to keep you around for so much longer. The Ravens did it with Joe Flacco. Just players that do things for their franchises and coaches that do things for their franchise, they feel like they owe them. And I feel like the Cardinals feel like they owe Cliff Kingsbury for bringing them Kyler Murray, but instead what they should recognize is, hey, let's not waste Kyler Murray. Let's get somebody that can really take this team to the next level, because I would agree, Matt. I don't think Cliff is that guy. I'm not rooting against Cliff. I like Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not massive into him as the guy that can take this Cardinals team to the Super Bowl, which is with the star players that they have. If you've got Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Chandler Jones, and JJ Watt, your goal should be Super Bowl. That is what your goal should be. I don't think any coach in the NFL would get those 4 players and say, let's get to the playoffs. And right now, those are the goals of their team, is like, can they make the playoffs, which is still a concern this year. This isn't a team like the Rams where everybody's looking at them and they're like, they're going to be in the playoffs. The Packers, I think most people would look at that team and say, they're going to be in the playoffs. If you say the Cardinals, yeah, they're 3-0, but you can't guarantee they're making the playoffs. And that's, I think coaching has a lot to do with that. But is there anything else you want to add?
Their defensive coordinator is Vance Joseph, and that's not a plus either. That is not good. So you got to talk about that, because you talk about those holes on the defensive side. Well, you need a coordinator that can adjust and match the other offensive coordinator, and I don't think they have that there either. So definitely a concern in that department as well.
Absolutely. But, if you guys disagree, let us know in the comment section down below. If you guys want players that you want us to compare against each other, the NFL season is actually back up, so we can actually talk about, like, hey, who's better? We've done some in the past that we've had a lot of fun doing. Burrow versus Herbert, Trey Lance versus Justin Fields. Trying to think if we've done other ones. One, I don't know if it's still up on the channel, but we did Myles Garrett versus Chris Jones. We have a lot of fun doing those, so let us know in the comment section down below if there's players you want us to talk about or other teams you want us to talk about. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Subscribe for more current football content, and we'll see all of you again next time.